All right, this next lesson is on the triangle inequality theorem. The triangle inequality theorem, what it technically states is that the sum of the lengths of any two sides of a triangle is going to be greater than the length of the third side. So the sum of the length of any two sides of a triangle needs to be larger than the third side. And really what that boils down to is that if you take the two smaller sides and add them together, they have to be larger than the third side. So when I add these two sides together, the two smaller sides, they have to be larger than the third side. So in this first situation, this would not make a triangle. This first situation, it's not possible to make a triangle. And hopefully you can see that if I had a segment of length 3, that would lay down and be about this long. If I had a segment of length 2, that would lay down and be about this long. Well, if I laid those two segments down, it doesn't even make a triangle. They're not long enough to make a triangle. So it's impossible to have a situation where the two sides, the two smaller sides, are smaller than that third side. It's impossible. The two smaller sides have to be larger. Even in this situation, this is equal to 6. This would just make two lines right on top of each other. That doesn't make a triangle either. The two smaller sides have to be larger than that third side. So the two smaller sides need to be larger than that third side. That's the only way that's going to be possible to make a triangle. And really what you could say is that any two sides of a triangle have to be larger than the third side, and that's technically what the triangle inequality theorem states. Any two sides are going to be larger than the third side. But I guess, like I said, what it really boils down to is if you take the two smaller sides and add them together, they always need to be larger than that third side. So do these two sides make a triangle? Well, the two smaller sides have to be larger than the third side. Whatever this third side is, they have to be larger. So what are the possible lengths for that third side? 8 plus 10 would give me 18. This third side here, because this has to be larger than the third side, that means that that third side needs to be smaller than 18. So what are some possible lengths of that third side? Well, it could be 17. It could be 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, so on and so on. It has to, like I said, these two sides have to be larger than the third side. Now, what if I asked you if it's possible for x to equal maybe 1? Is it possible for x to equal 1? Well, if we go back to that idea that the two smaller sides have to be larger than the third side, well, if this was 8, 10, and 1, well, now I would have 8 plus 1 would give me 9, and that's not larger than this third side. So now we need to look at this in terms of 8 plus x. Those need to be larger than that third side. So when I solve this out, I find out that x has to be larger than 2. So in this situation here, x needs to be larger than 2, but it also needs to be smaller than 18. So would it work with 3? So if this third side was 3, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11 is larger than 10. 10 plus 3 is 13. 13 is larger than 8. It works with 3, it would work with 4, it would work with 5, all the way up to 17. So in this triangle, if I had a triangle with length 8 and length 10, the third side would have to be anywhere from 2 to 18. Any number in between there. And how do I know that? The reason I know, again, is because any two sides, when I add them together, have to be larger than the third side. So I know that 8 plus x has to be larger than 10. I know that 10 plus x has to be larger than 10 plus x has to be larger than 8. And I know that 10 plus 8 has to be larger than x. So when I analyze all three of these together, I am able to narrow it down to this inequality. My x needs to be less than 18 and it needs to be greater than 2. So solve the inequality. AB and AC is greater than BC. So AB and BC. So these two sides are greater than the third side. Oh, I made a mistake there. Let me erase that. So AB, oh, there we go. AB plus AC greater than that third side. So if we combine our like terms, x plus x gives me 2x. 3 and 2 gives me 5. And then if I subtract 2x from both sides, and I add 2 to both sides, when I do that, let's see, when I subtract 2x, I add 2, and I add 2, and I end up with x, and then this, and then 7. So if I take this and flip it around, I end up with x less than 7. So do these three sides make a triangle? Again, remember that triangle inequality theorem, what it boils down to is the two smaller sides, when I add them together, have to be larger than that third side. So 5 plus 4 is 9. 9, nope, this one does not work. 5 plus 5 is 10. 10 is, hey, that works. 10 is larger than 9. So yes, this one does make a triangle. So that first one does not make a triangle. But the second one, that one does work out. Since the sum of the two smaller sides is greater than the third side, it will make a triangle. So what are the possible side lengths for this one? Well, 6 plus 12, that has to be greater than x. So 18 greater than x. So whatever the x value is, it has to be smaller than 18. And then also if I do 6 plus x, that has to be greater than 12. So this tells me that x has to be greater than 6. So will that work if I choose 7? Try the number 7 real quick. 6 plus 7 is 12, 13. 13 is greater than 2, so that does work. So this inequality will work. So that third side needs to be larger than 6, but smaller than 18. All right. The triangle inequality theorem also tells us that when you have a triangle, the sides will match up, the length of the sides will match up with the size of the angles. So the biggest side is going to be opposite the biggest angle. The middle side is going to be opposite the middle angle, and then the smallest side is going to be opposite the smallest angle. All right. So if this had a length of size 3 and this had a length of size 5, I know for a fact, just off of those two numbers, I know for a fact that angle C would be smaller than angle B. Or if I reverse that, I would say angle B would be larger than angle C. So the biggest angle is opposite. The biggest angle is opposite the biggest side. The medium angle is opposite the medium side. The smallest angle is opposite the smallest side. So in this picture here, I know for a fact that AC would be larger than AB. So according to this picture, what's the largest angle? Angle B is the largest. What's the next largest? That would be angle C. And what's the third largest angle? That would be angle A, or the smallest angle, I guess. The sides on this one, I know that XZ would be the largest side. I know that YZ would be the medium side, and the smallest side would be XY. All right, that concludes this lesson. So hopefully you have an understanding of how to order the sides and the angles based off of their measurements. And hopefully you also have an understanding of the side measurements and what can actually make a triangle and what can't make a triangle.